Hello, welcome to Stitching with Cindy Botts. Today I'm going to do our first sew together bag from our Design a Bag series. This time I'm going to do a shopping bag or a grocery bag. And we talked about in one of the earlier videos how you can use a bag that you already have as your template. Take off the measurements for that. So for this bag, that's exactly what I did, is I went ahead and I cut open one of these brown paper grocery bags that I like. Cut that open to get my measurements. You can lay that right on your fabric to get your dimensions if you wish. I definitely want to measure it and write those measurements down on my worksheet so that I can make a second one. And it's all right if they're not totally identical, but I want them to be very close. So here is my bag, and I went ahead and I measured the height and the width, the length of the strap, the amount of space between the straps. I measured the side panel, how wide it is, and how wide the bottom panel is. Okay, so those are the measurements that I wanted off of my brown bag. Here is the creation. Now for me, I wanted my bag to be able to be folded up and stored in the car, tossed on the front seat or in the pocket on the door. So I made a little strap with Velcro so that I can have it folded and tucked away nice and neat. All right, and I just sewed that strap with some Velcro on it to the side of my bag on the back. Okay, so here is my bag. Now my bag appears to be bigger, and that is partially because it does not stand up by itself, and the sides do not have any stabilizer or anything in them to give them the definition of a side, but that's nice for doing groceries and other shopping. I'm not going to be carrying per se a box that fits perfect in it, so I want my bag to have that little bit of that flexibility. Okay, now I boxed the bottom corners of my bags to give it some bit of a side definition. But again, it's not firm, it's very flexible. Now I used a light canvas material for my bag as one of my choices. Excuse me while I take a little sip. And just a few minutes ago, I couldn't stop yawning, so I'm hoping that does not happen again. So I'm hoping to add my worksheet to the descriptions as a PDF file. I don't know if that's going to happen. I recently learned how to add the videos to the description so that I could send you to a different video, so I could add that link, and I'm working on it. I'm learning. But if you are interested in the worksheet, I will leave my email address, thestitcherschoiceworkspace @gmail.com, and if you send me a quick email asking for this, I will definitely shoot it back to you so you can print it off. It's a great resource that I designed to walk you through the steps of how to design your own bag. So how we do this: step one, you got to decide on the name of your project, and I'm just saying it's a grocery bag, and I date it. So at the top of my little sheet here, we're going to do the grocery bag and today's date, which is November 19th. And then it starts going to the components, and you can circle choices, you can highlight them, and then you're just going to add measurements and notes as you go down. So I chose the style to be traditional, unlined, the shape rectangle. Material is going to be canvas. Mine's a very light canvas. I'm using one fabric, and the size I'm saying is large. The measurement is 14 by 12. The design is going to be plain. I'm not making a quilt block or multicolors or anything like that. I'm going to have no pockets on the outside. Again, the body, the front and the back, is going to be 12 by 14. The sides are 7 wide by 14 length. They are going to be actual constructed as part of the back and body, not a separate sewn in piece. And yes, I'm going to have pockets, but they're going to be on the inside, not on the outside. The bottom is going to be 4 inches wide by 12. And it too is going to be part of the front and back piece, not sewn on separately. The pockets is going to be 1. That is going to be inside with 8 by 10 approximately without closure. The handles, I am going to make mine from fabric, not strappy, and they're going to be a finished size of 1 by 14. They are going to be attached on the outside, on the front and back. Closures, none. Lining fabric, none. Interfacing or batting, none. So as you go through this cute little worksheet, it will help you organize your thoughts and your dimensions on how you want your bag to be. Then I have a space down here at the bottom where you can write down your cutting measurements so that you can include your seam allowances, and if you're going to use the material folded, or you're gonna add things together. Like I'm making mine one long rectangle, so I'm adding the 2 sides and the front and the back dimensions all together to make one long panel. That's helpful here. Also, I could add down here about the strap with the Velcro. There's room for notes down on the sides. And, you know, I just added that at the bottom. You can make notes on the side. It's just really nice to get your thoughts down on paper. And that way, when you go to make another bag after falling in love with this one that you made, you can then say, okay, how did I do that? And that's a problem I have sometimes when I just create things, is not writing it down. If you don't write it down, it's hard to recreate it just the way you want it. And this way also you can change things. You can say, well, you know what, I didn't really like that strap length, and you can write it down in the side, you know, strap length too long, strap length too short. However, you know, same with pockets and closures, what works and what doesn't work. You have a reference point for making lots of wonderful different bags. And that really goes for everything, your pot holders, your table runners. You know, try to write your things down. My sister makes a photograph of everything that she makes, and she does a lot of quilts, and she takes a photograph of everything, and she has a great reference point for when she's thinking about making someone a gift that's like, I remember I made, and she can go find what she made a lot easier. So let's get started on making our bag. So I have some of the pieces here already partially sewn so that we won't take as much time. Let's start with the strap. Now for this project, I did not do the tube method. I did the fold over, did that 4-inch wide by width of fabric, and I first ironed it, pressed it in half. Then I took the 2 ends, pressed them to the middle, and then folded it over. Now for some projects, you're going to want a clean, crisp, no raw edges. And to do that, before you sew down the sides, you could just sew across the tops, the bottoms, then turn it back over again and sew down. For this bag, I chose not to do that. I am going to do a flip over method when I attach it to the bag. So, stitched on both sides of my strapping with the fabric, and it's ready to go. And I'm going to use that same technique for the strap that goes around the bag. Okay, so here's my long piece of strap. Now I chose to make my finished strap be 1 by 14, but I need 2 inches on each end for the fold over. So that means I'm cutting this at 4 by 18 for my strap. Okay, so now that it's in the strap, just 18 inches long. Here is my super long rectangle. Now remember, I said for mine, I added the width of the sides, the front and the back together to make one long rectangle to work with. For this simple bag, I think that's just a very easy way to do it. and makes it quick, easy to do. So I just folded over the width of my presser foot and made a little hem at the top. Now, if this raw edge bothers you, you're worried about fraying and things, just fold it over one more time and sew it down, and then your raw edges are encased inside, and that no longer is an issue. To make my bag extra strong, and this is one of the things you can write down in the notes part, is I'm adding a 2.5 inch strip down the whole length of the bottom of the bag. So the bottom of the bag, after it's assembled, will have an extra layer of fabric. And when I sew this bottom seam, I'm going to sew it at the seam allowance, and then I'm going to sew it just under the seam allowance to give it a little extra support. All right, and I'm going to box my corners. So that's the body of the bag. To make my pocket, I took an approximate 8 by 10 inch rectangle, and I sewed the 3 sides closed. Then I'm opening that up, turning it right sides out. Then we're going to press it. Make sure you get right into those corners to get a nice crisp edge. And then I just top stitched the top because the sides are going to be sewn down onto my bag, and that will give it a top stitching effect. Okay, so that's my pocket. Here is the next part of the bag on how I placed my pocket. Here's my pocket. Is I folded my long body of the bag rectangle in half. This is the half mark right here, this fold line. I placed my pocket on my bag and decided where I wanted it height-wise, and then I simply folded it over, and that's where my stitching went. Now my pocket is stitched on, and I just fold it over, and you can just do your top stitching on the side. Goes down, over, across, and back up, and just make a little extra back stitching to give some security here. Since this is just a shopping bag for me, I'm not putting any closures on anywhere. I just want a drop-in spot for my change, my receipt, and that would keep it nice in that pocket. Now to move on to the handles. Again, I took my rectangle and I folded it in half, and I put a seam, just a quick little 1/4 inch seam down the one side. That's just going to help me for doing the measurements, and I did forget to mention that I did that before I folded it in half. That way I have a nice measure spot. And now I'm going to that halfway point, and you can either measure or fold in half. And I measured from there the 3 inches and 3 inches to give me my 6 inch spread between my two handles. For me, I put the handles on like so. I laid the strap onto the fabric just under the seam. That was my guide, right where I marked it. I put it on the seam line here and then folded it around, making sure not to have any creases or folds or twists, and laid it up at the top. Then I sewed it once and twice using my pressure foot as a guide, just moving my needle from one extreme side to the other, so from left to right. I did it twice. And then to get this raw edge encased, simply fold over your straps and make another stitching line here at the top. You've left a nice little space here so that you can just fold that over and sew that down, and it encases your raw edges. And this handle is finished, and that's how it looks. It's nicely encased. There's no raw edges there to be worried about. Now the last thing you do is you just put your sides and bottom seams in and box those corners. So pinning or clipping the right sides together, sew down the side seam, sew down the bottom seam. Then I like to lay my, to box it, I just lay this seam onto this seam. So I don't know if I can do it because it's not sewn, but we're going to open up the bag that's finished and show you that. All right, so when you look at this, this is the finished product. Now some people like to cut this little flap off. That's up to you when you're done, but you simply feel where the side seam is and the bottom seam, and you nest them up together. Then you measure down to where you want your boxing line to be, and I like to just use this center, this extra piece that I sewed on the bottom. That's 2.5 on this side and 2.5 on this side, and just line those up so it's nice and straight across and stitch it right down. All right, so you just measure from this point to this point so that you can repeat it on the other side. And again, trim that off or leave it. You can even tack it down if you want. And that gives you your box corners for your side dimension. And there you have it. You've just made yourself a nice grocery bag. And if you wish to make the tail, the strap, I simply use some of my strapping, put a chunk of Velcro on either side, so this side on this end and the other side on that side, so that when it comes up and around, it will attach and have a nice secure hold of your bag. And that's it. So I thank you for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. If you live in the Rochester, Warsaw is where we're located, Warsaw, New York, and I am scheduling classes and workshops and sew with me activities, and I'm looking forward to having some new faces. So check out the Facebook quilting and the Facebook group quilting and sewing at the Stitcher's Choice Workspace, and come back and visit us again. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends. You have a good night now. Bye.